It was a sunny afternoon at the marina, the kind of day perfect for fishing trips and quiet reflection by the water. Among the boats and gentle waves, a group of bikers pulled up, their roaring engines cutting through the calm. Loud, brash, and clearly looking for attention, they spotted a lone woman loading gear onto her small fishing boat. She seemed out of place, quiet, focused, and completely unfazed by their arrival. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. Their arrogance quickly turned to taunts, the kind that would intimidate most people. What they couldn't see, however, was the steel resolve behind her calm demeanor. This wasn't just any woman. She was a Navy SEAL, someone trained to stay composed under pressure and handle situations most people couldn't even imagine. What happened next would teach these bikers a lesson they'd never forget. The woman continued her work as if the bikers weren't even there, her movements deliberate and steady. She tied knots with practiced ease, her eyes scanning the water, not the men behind her. Her calmness only seemed to fuel their arrogance. One of the bikers, a tall guy with a leather jacket and a smug grin, sauntered closer. He cracked a joke loud enough for everyone to hear, drawing laughter from his group. Still, she didn't flinch. What they didn't realize was that every move they made was being carefully observed. She wasn't ignoring them, she was assessing them. Years of training had taught her how to read people, anticipate their actions, and stay one step ahead. The bikers, caught up in their own bravado, had no idea who they were messing with. To them, she was just an ordinary woman. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The leader of the group, the man in the leather jacket, leaned against a piling and tossed out another taunt, this time directed squarely at her. His buddies laughed, their voices echoing across the marina. Still, she didn't respond. Instead, she calmly secured the last of her gear and stepped onto the boat. Her lack of reaction seemed to irritate them. One of the younger bikers, trying to impress the group, took a step closer, blocking her path. "Hey, we're just having some fun," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. She stopped, turning her head slightly, her calm eyes meeting his. For the first time, she spoke, her voice steady and low. "I'd step back if I were you." The laughter died down. Something in her tone made even the boldest of them pause for a second. But the leader brushed it off. "Come on, lady. Don't be like that," he said, his smile now edged with irritation. He clearly wasn't used to being ignored. As the tension thickened, a few curious onlookers began to gather at a distance. The woman's calm exterior didn't waver, but her stance shifted ever so slightly, her movements subtle yet deliberate. She was ready if things escalated, but she hoped they wouldn't. What the bikers didn't know was that she wasn't just protecting herself. She was protecting them from a mistake they wouldn't be able to take back. The young biker didn't back down. Emboldened by the laughter of his crew, he took another step forward, blocking the narrow gangway that led to her boat. The leader smirked, arms crossed, clearly enjoying the show. "What's the rush? Stay and chat," he said, his tone dripping with fake charm. She didn't answer. Instead, she shifted her weight, her posture casual yet controlled, like a coiled spring. A slight breeze tugged at her hair as her eyes flicked between the men, quietly calculating her options. It was clear they weren't going to back off without a confrontation, and she could sense their bravado was masking something deeper, a need to prove themselves, even at the expense of common sense. The crowd around the marina had grown, whispers spreading about the woman who remained eerily calm in the face of rising tension. But the bikers didn't notice. They were too busy playing to each other, the adrenaline of the moment clouding their judgment. That in a sudden burst of bravado, the younger biker reached out, grabbing the edge of the boat as if to climb aboard. Her hand shot out like lightning, gripping his wrist with a strength that caught him, and everyone watching, completely off guard. She didn't hurt him, but her hold was firm, unyielding, and spoke volumes. "Step back," she said again, her voice cool and commanding. The crowd fell silent. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they might have underestimated her. But instead of de-escalating, the leader stepped forward, his grin now replaced with a scowl. The air was electric. Something was about to happen, and everyone knew it. The leader stepped closer, his jaw tight, eyes narrowing as he sized her up. "You've got a lot of nerve," he said, his voice low, trying to sound menacing. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she released the younger biker's wrist and took a single step forward, her calm gaze locking onto the leader's. It was the kind of look that could cut through bravado and reach something deeper, uncertainty. Before he could respond, the sound of boots on wood interrupted the moment. From across the marina, a man in a Coast Guard uniform appeared, walking briskly toward the scene. His presence drew everyone's attention, but it was the look he gave her, a small nod of recognition, that shifted the energy entirely. The leader hesitated, glancing between her and the approaching officer, confusion flickering across his face. "Is there a problem here?" the officer asked, his tone firm but neutral, his hand resting casually near his radio. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, but the leader, not wanting to lose face, shook his head. "No problem. Just a friendly conversation," he said, his words forced. The officer didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at her, as if waiting for her to confirm or deny the claim. She didn't say anything, but the faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corner of her lips. The officer's posture straightened slightly, as though he knew exactly what she was capable of. The leader shifted on his feet, clearly uncomfortable. And then, just as the tension seemed to ease, the officer's radio crackled to life. A voice came through with an urgent message. "All units, possible altercation reported at the marina. Female Navy SEAL identified on site. Requesting confirmation." The bikers froze. The cover drained from the leader's face. Suddenly, they realized this wasn't just any ordinary woman. The game they thought they were playing had just taken a turn they never expected. The air around the marina felt heavy, every eye locked on the unfolding scene. The bikers stood frozen, their earlier arrogance replaced by unease. The leader opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. The weight of the radio message had hit them like a tidal wave. The woman, calm as ever, stepped forward, breaking the silence. "You should go," she said evenly, her tone leaving no room for argument. Her words were simple, but the authority in her voice was undeniable. The leader hesitated, glancing at his crew, but he knew they were out of their depth. As the bikers began to retreat, muttering half-hearted excuses, the officer spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension. "You might want to rethink how you handle yourselves in the future," he said, his gaze steady. It wasn't a threat, but it was clear the warning carried weight. Just as the bikers mounted their motorcycles, engines sputtering to life, one of them glanced back. "Who are you anyway?" he called, his voice tinged with a mix of defiance and curiosity. The woman paused, her expression unreadable. Then, with a faint smile, she replied, "Someone you'll remember." The roar of the motorcycles faded into the distance, and the marina slowly returned to its calm. The officer, now standing beside her, let out a low chuckle. "You've got a way with people," he said, shaking his head. She shrugged, her focus already back on her boat. "It's just about knowing when to speak, and when to let them figure it out themselves." But as she untied the last rope and prepared to leave, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. A small leather patch one of the bikers had dropped in their rush. Picking it up, she turned it over in her hand. It wasn't just any patch. It was marked with an insignia she recognized from her past missions. Her expression darkened slightly, her calm composure giving way to a flicker of something deeper. The bikers might have left, but this wasn't over. Not yet. She turned the patch over again, her mind briefly replaying memories of past missions and the symbols tied to them. It wasn't something an average biker would carry, and that realization lingered as she slipped the patch into her pocket. For now, though, the immediate danger had passed, and the quiet rhythm of the marina returned. As the officer gave her a nod and walked away, she stepped onto her boat, starting the engine with ease. The water rippled softly as she steered out of the marina, the sun beginning its slow descent on the horizon. She glanced back once, taking in the scene behind her. Another reminder of how easily situations can spiral, even in the most peaceful of places. But she didn't dwell. Life had taught her to focus on what's ahead, not what's behind. The bikers had learned their lesson, and as for her, she was ready for whatever came next.